The History of Peckforton Light Railway Part 8. Well, we've now reached 2024. 20 years since Peckforton Light Railway was first conceived. In previous episodes of these history reports, I have described how the railway was constructed, and how it gained its identity using real locations not far from where I live in rural Cheshire. We have also seen how I set about constructing my own rolling stock, firstly by modifying or bashing commercially available models, and eventually by creating my own designs for 3D printing. I have also described when, over the years, I have hosted visitors from as far afield as Norway, Australia, New Zealand, and Suffolk. And then how, in 2017, I set up my own online business, selling radio control equipment, designed specifically for garden trains. More recently, I've described how various line-side businesses have been added to justify the large amount of goods traffic carried by the railway, and how the line has been extended to include sidings for the sand quarry. But perhaps the most significant development in 2023 was to use my 3D design skills to start constructing my own powered chassis. 2024 in the UK has been identified as having the wettest weather on record, with the northwest of the country having very little sunshine and many weeks of almost continuous rain. This has made finding opportunities to run trains difficult. However, I did manage to squeeze in some running sessions and make a couple of videos showing the line in action. Early in the year, I spotted a second-hand Houston Gate Loco Works kit-built loco on eBay for a bargain price and snapped it up. I set about modifying it to make it look less like a steeple cab loco and more like a diesel that could be found on a UK-based narrow gauge railway. However, after a considerable amount of bashing, I still wasn't happy, and so designed some 3D printed parts to enhance it, to resemble a Gemeinde diesel loco. I was very pleased with how it turned out, and also by its hauling capabilities. The STL files needed to construct the loco, mounted on a Houston Gate Loco Works Deluxe chassis, are available for free download on the gardenrails.org forum website, by the way. Buoyed with this success, I bought another Houston Gate Deluxe chassis and looked around for a small narrow gauge diesel to sit upon it. I've always loved Ruston locos, and so created 3D body parts to fit the chassis, based loosely on a Ruston 44-48 horsepower loco. However, when I married the body to the chassis, it simply didn't look right. The chassis was far too chunky. There was nothing else for it but to design and print my own bespoke powered chassis. After a considerable amount of trial and improvement, I produced a reliable chassis using a GA25 370 geared motor and brass bevel gears from AliExpress. As you can see, the mechanism runs very smoothly and is sufficiently powerful for this little loco. In fact, I'm confident that, once I've packed sufficient ballast on board the loco, where there isn't a great deal of room inside for chunks of lead flashing, it will haul far more than its prototypical original could manage. I was very pleased with my powered chassis and decided to construct another diesel logo to make use of it. The early Ruston Proctor ZLHD, developed during World War I, piqued my interest, and so I searched the internet for drawings. In the process, I came across a download for a 3D file on the Shapeways website. Although it was a GN15 model, I decided to give it a try. It wasn't straightforward to re-gauge, but after some tweaking, I ended up with a usable body to mate with a modified version of my chassis. Having no scale drawings, I have since discovered that it is slightly overscale, but I am happy that it is redolent of the original, and, like the Ruston, I think it's going to prove to be a powerful workhorse. My next endeavour was to construct a De Winton vertical boilered loco. I downloaded one from Thingiverse, but as it was a 32mm gauge model, I needed to modify it. This involved a complete rejig of the mechanism. I opted for an adaptation of my proven GA25 370 powered chassis, but with a motor mounted vertically in the boiler driving a lay shaft. However, I wasn't happy with its appearance. It just didn't look right as a 3-foot gauge loco. On the gardenrails.org forum, I was alerted to a real 3-foot gauge De Winton loco on display in the foyer of the Welsh Highland station at Carnarvon. A quick trip and a few photos later, and I produced the 3D printed parts needed to make a reasonably accurate model of it. Trying to squeeze batteries, receiver, sound card, and a speaker into the confined space was a challenge, but not insurmountable. And the motion took several iterations before something which worked reliably evolved. At the end of the day, I must say I'm delighted with the outcome. Not only does it look acceptable, it runs really well. I just need to try and squeeze more LED flashing in somewhere to increase its adhesion. But it's not too far off what I want it to be. You may have noticed the diesel locos in the video clips are all equipped with sound cards. I do like my locos to make appropriate noises. Another member of the gardenrails.org forum drew my attention to some very cheap diesel sound simulation sound cards on AliExpress. These interface really well with the Micron receivers which I now use in my locos, as they are directly compatible with Deltang equipment. All they lack is a horn sound, but I intend to add that later. Way back in 2014, I constructed 20 semaphore signals to control train movements on the line. Their positions were suggested to me by a serving signalman, another of the visitors I have hosted over the years. Initially, I tried motorizing them using a centralized pickaxe system, but the wiring was complex and susceptible to the weather. Recently, I'd stumbled across some tiny linear servos, which could be powered by a single 3.7-volt lithium-ion cell. I then tracked down a tiny Arduino microprocessor and a tiny key fob receiver, all of which could also be powered by a single lithium-ion cell. This meant I was able to make a control system for each signal completely self-contained, and therefore removable. Thus, they needed only to be showerproof rather than completely weatherproof. The construction of 20 control units took a little while, but the railway is now fully equipped. I have already trialled a few of the signals, and am very pleased with the result. I can't wait for springtime, when I'll be able to deploy them completely. And, as mentioned earlier, I did manage to find time and decent weather to run some trains. This, for example, is an extract from a video following the journey of a special coal train as it progressed down and back up the line. You'll see that this was when I tried out a few of the signals for the first time. I also created a video which followed the daily pickup goods. Here we see the Gemeinde Diesel on an up sand train coasting through Beeston Castle station as the pickup goods waits to shunt wagons into the sidings. Another video showed all the train movements through Beeston Castle station in the course of a day. Considering this is not a principal station, it was surprising just how much traffic there was. The Gemeinde Diesel gets yet another appearance, this time as backup for the Walker railcar at the end of the day. And finally, a video showing the entire fleet of locos in action at some point during a day's running. Making a rare appearance was my one and only live steam loco, a Regno Challoner. So, as yet another year draws to a close, we can but wonder what 2025 might bring. Already plans are being made to revamp Eastern Market Station, but that will depend on time and, dare I say it, the weather. Happy New Year. I hope it brings you all that you were hoping for.